Becca, and I need to talk about the show 24 because it is a masterclass in writing, suspense, and action. I actually went to school for creative writing for a bit, ended up having to drop out, but I did manage to get an associate's, and for some reason suspense in particular was a major struggle for me, and in the end considered me dropping out in a way. That's a topic for another day. If I knew the show existed back then, I may not have struggled so hard. I don't know if the points I make in this video will be good at all, but I really wanted to break down the writing of this show to see if I can use it to write something new in the end. That has been cute. If you haven't seen 24 for yourself, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Go watch it now. This is an amazing show that follows Jack Bauer, an agent with counterterrorism who stops at nothing to fight to protect those that he loves. I've never seen a show or a movie utilize real time before, and that's such an effective way to write suspense. It's a really smooth way to allow the viewer to keep track of time within the story, and also keeps the viewer on edge the entire time. It's honestly like a 24-hour version of some of my favorite films taken.
I will find you, and I will kill you.
Not only is the real-time aspect incredibly effective, but they also sprinkle in other countdown aspects through bombs and finding out information about certain things happening during a certain time frame. That's probably one of the most effective ways to keep suspense going. If the characters don't have time to do things and it just seems like there's not enough to go around, everything just seems hopeless. This next topic I was surprised is relevant to suspense for me. It's such a small detail but can really make or break a suspenseful scene for me. One thing I wish to see more in suspense or thriller shows and films is if girls go running, I want to see his shoes flying across the screen. If they're wearing anything but tennis shoes or boots, for me, if the girl is in heels, wedges, or flip-flops trying to run in those shoes, I can't help but feel that you ain't in that much of a hurry. Unless you're this guy. It's a small detail, but I think if the shoes go flying, it'll sell the dire situation that much more and make it to where when she's actually captured, that's much more devastating. But 8 seasons later, Bailey takes her shoes off. You are actually very helpful. One thing that I learned when I was going to school, specifically for writing TV series, is there almost has to be a certain formula and pattern to the show to create a sense of familiarity to get people to watch, come back and rewatch. That's very much the case with a lot of TV shows that have a lot of episodes and seasons, like NCIS, Castle, Law & Order. The only thing with implementing a formula or pattern into a script is how sometimes it can interfere with the flow of the plot and can create a sense of repetitiveness. And I can pick up on that a bit in 24, where in every single season, Jack has to literally re-earn his respect. Even though within at least a couple seasons of the show, we all know he's the best in the field. He's not respected at the beginning of new seasons. He's always forced into breaking laws and regulations to do his job because no one listens to him initially. I would have liked to see a progression season by season where Bauer was more a part of the team and respected and listened to much earlier. I think that could be a great way to raise the stakes of the situation and get us thinking that, yeah, stuff's going down. Yeah. Sure, there could be some characters against bringing him on, board, and that can still create some conflict by having everyone against bring him on board and trying to arrest him instead, bogs down the suspense a bit. At least initially, because you don't sense the urgency of the situation right away. It's only when everyone finally caves and Bauer gets involved that we know things are really going down. This is a very similar thing that happens in the show The 100. I've been rewatching that lately too, and in every single season, whenever Clark's friends end up in trouble, she always says a one-line plot spoiler: they're going to be fine. And that's how you know her friends are gonna be fine. They were trapped in a bunker of cannibals, but they'll be fine. But when they break that formula a bit and she says that she doesn't know if they're gonna be fine, then the audience doesn't know, and that really raises the suspense of the situation. Because sometimes I'd argue that even in TV series, it's important to break the formula sometimes to keep things on edge. In most movies or shows, the main characters are safe, but what keeps these shows and movies suspenseful is that almost anyone can be killed off. Kind of like Game of Thrones or The Hunger Games or even Squid Games, where you don't know who's going to live or die next. In this show in particular, it's when Bauer's wife gets killed off at the end of season 1. You don't really expect that. This show is also incredibly good at getting you to not like a new character initially, then growing to really like them later on, except for Nina. For instance, Chloe was initially misunderstood and brushed off a lot for being different, similar to me. At first seemed like a know-it-all or inexperienced until other characters learned to work with her. And then she really became a part of the team and even part of a family almost. Michelle seemed more ambitious than caring at first, but then I feel like her romance with Almeida really allowed her to grow more and kind of soften a bit. Audrey for me seemed almost stuck up in the beginning, but then became super caring for Bauer. Speaking of which, whenever a romance interest popped up for Bauer, I found I was super protective of him and automatically didn't like the woman at first until a few episodes later when we got to know them better. Another character is Bill, seemed like a stuck in the mud, following the rules at any cost until Bauer basically broke him. Also, I freaking love Bauer as a character. He kind of became like my dad while I was watching the show, and the rule is when he cries, you cry. Okay, so what were my major takeaways for writing suspense and action? I guess to break that down, we need to understand what suspense is. Suspense is uncertainty, the unknown. It's kind of anxiety keeping you on the edge of your seat. So I want to break it down into 4 pillars, and that I think really breaks down the kind of formula of suspense. The first one is betrayal. Who can or can't be trusted? Can anyone? Who knows? How do they find out, and what are the consequences? Number 2, take away what the main character cares about the most. It raises the stakes and desperation of the situation. For example, Bauer gets his wife taken away from him at the end of the first season. That creates tension going into season 2 because we don't know how Bauer is going to overcome this loss and get back into the action. Number 3 is time. Gives the characters little time to recover or process what's going on and raises the tension, stakes, and anticipation. Number 4 is, what is the dangerous situation? What's going to threaten the characters, in what way, and how do they overcome it? My friend also suggested that I mention suspense in relation to genre. So whether it's suspense for action / adventure or suspense for horror. But while there's a lot of overlap with these genres, there's also a lot of differences, especially when you get into horror, and that's a whole thing in and of itself. whether it's psychological, supernatural, thrasher, or any other subgenre. So I'll probably do another video on writing horror, possibly analyzing A Quiet Place or something. I was going to share my suspense samples from while I was in school, but it turns out I lost them when Windows corrupted my hard drive years ago. So instead, I just started working on a story that I've had an idea for a long time. I wanted to come up with something completely new to write at the end of this video, but I have such a backlog of ideas, and this particular idea I've never actually sat down with to write, even though I wanted to for a long time. So this story idea is called Lift It Up, and is actually a geological disaster type of story where gravity on Earth goes from being normal to expelling everything and then suddenly going normal again, causing everything to crash back down, physically ripping society and a planet as we know it apart. It's kind of like The Day After Tomorrow or Stephen King's The Dome, even maybe a bit of San Andreas with the family aspect I'm writing into it. I did, however, start writing this as a first chapter for a book, initially because I had a lot of detail I wanted to get out of my head, but I ended up getting one good scene and drawing a blank on the structure of it. So I'll probably be rearranging it as a pilot or something at some point. I don't know, sometimes you just feel like writing a book, I guess. My writing is so rusty, I haven't sat down to write in forever. But at least I have an idea of how to make Lift It Up as suspenseful as it can be. Anyway, I hope this video was at least somewhat interesting. I doubt it was really helpful at all. But stay tuned for the video where I compose some action music. Spoiler alert, you've been hearing it this whole video.